Vielen Dank, Gail, für diesen wundervollen.
Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. In fact, we have received a question in the chat. It's in English. Would you like to read it out or do you want me to?
Von Esther.
It was posted by Esther.
Okay. So, hi, Esther. Can you tell something about how you use social stories in early communication development when past and present is not yet really available for the child? Okay, those would be times when I would be using real object cues. I know Rob mentioned them this morning, and I think maybe Julie did as well. So you start with object cues that are meaningful to the child and individualise the child and form part of that activity itself. So it may be that, so a little one that I'm working with who is at an early developmental level, bath time has been quite traumatic for her. I think possibly because the bath has just felt such a big space for her. So we've looked at getting supports in to make it a smaller, more secure space, being in the bath water for her. So for her, we have set up a little social story that has the bath towel, a particular flashing light-up duck that she likes, a bubble blower thing that she also enjoys. And then we talk to the story about with her when it before she goes to bath time. So we took some photographs of her in the bath. Oh, and a video, actually. The video worked better than the photographs, actually. And she has quite good residual hearing with her hearing aids on, so we had a little bath time song. And so we then played bath time with her, with the doll, and we pretended that the baby was crying, and then so Mummy gave the baby a hug, and then we got the duck, and the baby's laughing. So we were able to use those real activities and objects to help create a simple social story for her. I hope that's helpful. Oh, I'm not hearing anything.
Die nächste Frage kommt von Frau Dom.
Right, the next question was posted by Ms. Dome. Is it possible to put two linked problems in a social story, problems that are linked together?
Yeah, you can, as long as it doesn't become too complex. If the two issues need to be addressed alongside each other, then yes, I would put them into one social story, but I would make sure that it doesn't become too complex.
Gail, eine weitere deutsche Frage.
Gail, there's another question that was posted in German.
Da geht es die Story von Adam.
This is about Adam's story. And the question is, when Adam went to get vaccinated, did he take the story with him to read it again there on site?
The one where he had the 3 injections, yes, he did. He took it with him. And he had the first injection and then had to read the social story again. And then he had the second one. And then apparently he had the third one and he was just, oh my word, 3. So, yeah. But his COVID vaccination, he didn't go into the hospital setting then. We changed his story and different arrangements were made. And it was better. It was better. So, yeah, less stressful for him, so less stressful for everybody else.
Dann eine weitere Frage. Welches
Another question.
Programm benutzt ihr für die Umsetzung von Social
Which software do you use to implement social stories on the computer? That is, also, do you use iPads instead of printouts?
Yeah, it depends what system the child or young person uses. So if the young man that I showed you with, we use communication in print, which is also called widget symbols, which is something that's used very widely over here. But other youngsters may have got a couple of youngsters whose vision is not very good, so they used raised moon symbols, which is, I don't know if that's a very UK system. It's a simplified form of Braille. So some of them might have that, but it depends on what the child or young person uses. So if they're not accessing written word, then we wouldn't use written word. If they're at a photograph stage, we would use photographs. If they're at real objects, we'd use real objects.
Dann wurde jetzt hier nochmal ein konkretes Beispiel.
Right, and a specific example was described. Here isn't really a question, but someone posted this. A specific example, frequent hand washing during COVID at school, and at the same time always wanted to be the first, otherwise getting angry.
Well, you can build that into a social story. So yeah, the hand washing, you could put a sequence in for that, but you could also build a social story into that about taking turns and different children being first and second. But I would also use a visual support for that, for maybe if there's 5 children and you have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and photographs beside them, then every time they wash their hand, then the children rotate. So you move a child every day, and I would get the child with charge to move themselves up and move the next person, first person that was first down to 5th, and so on, to help them understand that. But yeah, you could use a social story to support that.
Gail, eine weitere Frage in Englisch. Kannst du
Gail, there's another question posted in English. Can you see it? And read it out, please.
Have you experienced social stories working well for toilet training, and what worked to make it effective? This is a really tricky one. Yes, I have a number of social stories. I have worked with a speech and language therapist, so we have a social story for the toilet for boys and a social story for toilet for girls. But what I would say about toileting is youngsters with charge are the most truly multisensory impaired youngsters you will encounter. And as well as everything that is commonly talked about the vision, the hearing, the vestibular sense, there's also interoception, which is that internal state that you know when you're hot, you know when you're hungry, you know when your heart is racing. And connected to that is knowing when your bladder is full and you need to go and have a pee. And so for some youngsters, that feedback mechanism is so poor that they're not aware that they need that they need to go to the loo. So it's funny, I had this conversation with somebody about a 15-year-old just the other day who had a toileting accident while I was with her. Now, this is a very capable young lady, but she clearly doesn't get that sensation that says, my bladder is full. So we've done 2 things. One is we've built it into her schedule. So we've built in regular toileting opportunities, which it sort of coincides with some of the stuff that Kim was saying yesterday about just going to the loo and trying. But you could also create a social story not only on the toileting process. And actually, it was one of the German families a while ago. And if you're here, then I hope you don't mind me sharing this. That when we had a consultation, your son was not going to the bathroom, and I said, well, they need to go with Dad and see Dad pee in the loo, because they need to know that this is what everybody else does. And so you can build that into the social story as well. You know, mum pees, dad pees, brother pees, sister pees. We all pee in the loo, you hope. And that, so you could build in social stories like that as well. But again, I think you have to be mindful of what else is going on for them and whether they actually have that internal feedback that says, I need to go to the loo. Okay.
Gail, eine Frage noch, die ist jetzt nicht aus dem Chat.
There's one more question. This is not from the chat, though. What about pain? Are there social stories that can be used when there's pain? How should I behave? Who should I turn to? What should I do?
Yeah. And again, this is, I have used a social story for sharing pain, but we've had to do a lot of work before that on naming body parts and learning to localize where you're feeling hurt. But then, you know, you can have those social stories about if I am hurt, I can. So a bit like that chart that was when I am angry, I can do 5 belly breaths or whatever, you know, the things that you can do and people that you can go to and that they will make it better. But again, that piece of work needs to be done around identifying and recognizing hurt and where it's happening.
Ja, vielen Dank, Gail.
Right, thank you so much, Gail. I'm not seeing any additional questions right now. So thank you so much. Thank you for your great presentation. I believe, again, this must have been very helpful for both parents and professionals who were listening. And this, in fact, takes us to the end of our conference. We'd like to say thank you again to everyone who was involved, to everyone who presented, to our speakers, to the sign language interpreters, to the simultaneous interpreters, to the technicians, without whom none of this would have been possible. Thank you so much. And let's hope that sometime soon we'll get to meet again face to face. And to everyone, a wonderful good evening, a wonderful nice afternoon. Stay safe and see you soon.
Bye. Thank you, Gail.